Okay, I'm not a movie reviewer, and I'm certainly not a critic, but I did want to talk about this film because I watched it recently, and it really threw me off. It was pretty good, and I thought I'd make a video out of it and recommend it. It's a hidden gem that I had never even heard of. I actually stumbled across it by accident. I think I found it in a thrift book or a thrift store bargain bin somewhere, and the only reason I picked it up was because I saw that Edward G. Robinson was in it, and I'd never heard of it, and I thought, well, what the heck? And so what I expected out of it was a basic old detective noir film, and it's kind of what they tried to do. I was expecting a detective story and shadowy rooms and trench coats and good old Hollywood crime stuff. And I was kind of blindsided by the fact that it felt creepy. And I mean, it came across to me as just creepy as hell. So The Stranger is a 1946 noir thriller. It's directed by Orson Welles, and it stars Orson Welles, Edward G. Robinson, and Loretta Young. And Edward G. Robinson's character is chasing down a Nazi war criminal, and they don't know what he looks like. And this guy, Orson Welles, is the Nazi war criminal, and he's hiding in a quiet American town, and he is living as a respected school teacher. And Loretta Young plays his wife. In fact, they get married at the beginning of the film, and she doesn't know who she's married. And it looks like a detective noir thriller, but it's about buried guilt, literally, and the past catching up and time running out. And boy, do they hit on that time running out thing with all the clock symbology in it, and it's evil hiding in respectable places. And now the reason I really wanted to do this video on this film was because this was a genre mismatch. It's taking something monstrous, Nazi war crimes, genocide, ideological evil, industrialized murder, and it's putting it into a familiar old Hollywood structure of the noir detective story. It's cat and mouse chase, a fugitive hiding under a false identity, criminal in a small town. And today, looking at it from this modern age of ours, it really feels strange. It's historically out of place, and it's moving. I think Hollywood was using an old storytelling technique for a new kind of evil that it didn't really fully understand, and it makes it feel really unstable, really odd. And like I said, Edward G. Robinson, he was the main reason I picked it up. He's one of the great gangster actors. In fact, his role as Rocco in Key Largo was the defining image and icon of a mobster at the time. And in fact, if you can recall your Bugs Bunny cartoons, that was who always, that was who they modeled their gangsters after. Whenever he was, whenever Bugs Bunny was up against a mobster. And I loved Edward G. Robinson in The Cincinnati Kid. He had a small part, but his role in that film was critical. And I mean, he was cool. He was cool all through that film. And so I loved that movie. Just because of that. And so he's usually associated with the crooks and the gangsters and the I think he had just done Little Caesar, and in The Stranger he flips all that, and now he's not the criminal, he's the investigator. He's the hunter. He's calm, he's patient and observant, and he's like a bulldog after his prey, and he is going to get his man. And man, he was just. And then you got Orson Welles, and here's Orson Welles. You've got a man who's known for big theatrics. He's known for, everybody knows Citizen Kane, And you might even have heard the War of the Worlds radio broadcast. This man was over the top. And in this film, he's not over the top. He is... Oh, man. Orson Welles does a fine job because he's playing a monster. And this monster is... He's living very comfortably in polite society. He's soft-spoken. He's controlled. He's dead-eyed. He's... he's not a mustache-twirling villain. He's not a raging lunatic. He's passing as a normal citizen, and man, it only slips once in a while when he lets it slip through his eyes, and I'm telling you, he acts with his eyes all through this film. You've got to watch it, especially at the end. His eyes are going wild, and it's just, that alone is worth the price of admission, And poor Loretta Young, she's playing this trapped woman who, she thinks she's married a nice man. She has no idea who he really is. And, she becomes very critical to the plot. She's not just some naive bride that just doesn't have a clue what's going on. No, she's very critical. She's blind because she's in love with this man and can't believe that he's the monster that he is, or that he's accused of being. And then you've got this small town setting, and here you are. You've got Harper, Connecticut. It's a fictional town, and it's almost like it's ready to be filmed. It's ready to be a Christmas movie. And in fact, toward the end, there's even snow falling, and it looks pristine and wonderful and Christmassy, and you expect Jimmy Stewart to come running down the street saying, Merry Christmas, everybody, and that ain't what happens. And you're expecting, because this is a noir film, you're expecting Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, alleyways, bars, cheap hotel, rain, neon, corruption, and it. It usually, noir films look morally rotten, almost dystopian, whereas The Stranger, it takes place in happy Harper, Connecticut, and it just looks wholesome. Snowy streets, church bells, there's neighbors, there's even a lovely little general store with a nice fat patron or manager who's just lovable and plays checkers, and it's just a wonderful bit of New England Americana, and it feels like it should be the setting for It's a Wonderful Life or a Norman Rockwell painting or a Christmas postcard. In fact, the film opens up, before you even get to Harper, Connecticut, you see a postcard of Harper, Connecticut. It's the ideal New England town, and it's just, that's why it was so creepy to me. Everything, the setting and the storytelling techniques, they were not fit for a Nazi war criminal subject matter, and I think that's kind of why I thought I would do a video on this, because this film was a success at the time. It was a box office hit. Hasn't really stood the test of time, but it was a box office hit, and it twisted the genres a bit, and that's kind of why I'm talking about it, because it puts the subject matter that doesn't quite belong into this storytelling technique, and that's why it came across to me as so creepy. So, take that for what it's worth. You got a haunted castle, and it tells you what kind of story you're in. If you're in a dark alley, and you'll know that danger belongs there. If you have a snowy, friendly town, that tells you everything is safe. And so when you've got evil there, it just violates the promise of the setting, and that makes the audience uneasy, especially these days in this modern age where we know a whole hell of a lot more about what happened in World War II than they fully understood back then in 1946. You got to remember, this film was made in 1946, a year after the war had ended, and even though newsreels were showing footage of the war and Holocaust, the Holocaust and everything, it hadn't really entered the American public's mind yet exactly what they were seeing, what the scale of this evil. And so it was, they wouldn't be able to make this movie today because, for a lot of reasons, it just violates the expectations that the audience would have. And the camps had only recently been liberated, and the term Holocaust was being used kind of in official capacities, but it hadn't entered the American vocabulary yet. And again, they just hadn't really processed the scale of the horror of this evil that had happened in Germany. And they're trying to tell a story relatable to these modern events, modern at the time, and they use noir because noir was something that they understood, and it was what was available, and that's why it feels so damned odd now. And something else about this film was that The Stranger was the first time that a Hollywood film had used actual documented footage of the Holocaust, of the camps being liberated, what they found at the camps. And it's really intrusive, and it's not a throwaway scene. Edward G. Robinson has a projector, and he is using it to try to convince Loretta Young's character just how evil her husband really is. And it's very well done. I'm not going to show any of that footage here, but this is not a throwaway scene. This is done very well in very noir style, and they don't overplay it, but they don't underplay it either. And it's a creepy scene, and it's a very well done scene. And then you got the clocks. There's clocks running all through this, and Orson Welles' character, he's obsessed with clocks, and he studies them, he fixes them, he controls them, and the symbolism isn't very subtle. They're kind of hitting you over the head with a clock, but it is symbolizing that this man is trying to control something, and time is running out for him, and boy does it. The past catches up to him, and the clock's ticking, and Edward G. Robinson is on his trail. He's got his scent, and oddly enough, I'm telling you, the ending of this film takes place at the top of a clock tower, and time literally runs out for Orson Welles. I don't want to spoil it for you, but you've got to see that ending, and you've got to watch it all the way through to appreciate that ending. And something else about this film is that as I was studying it, I started getting real Cold War vibes, but the Cold War hadn't started yet. Cold War wouldn't come until a few years later, but it still had this paranoia about it, and that the enemy is amongst us, and this is before Invasion of the Body Snatchers or anything like that, where the Cold War paranoia was really infiltrating American culture. And but it was, you could watch it and you could feel the Cold War right around the corner, where the commies are amongst us and infiltrating our lives and our country. And anyway, it's just something I noticed about it, and it's worth watching just to catch on all of these odd things that I was noticing. And oddly enough, Orson Welles wasn't very proud of it. He didn't like this film because he had to behave himself. He gave the studio exactly what they wanted. From what I understand, he delivered it on time, under budget, and it was one of the few commercial successes that Orson Welles actually had, and I didn't know that about him either. He, he's known for Citizen Kane. He's known for the War of the Worlds. He's not known for this film. In fact, this film has slipped through the cracks, and I think that's a crime. It's, he didn't get to be Orson Welles in this film. And I think that actually works in its favor, because if he got to be the flamboyant Orson Welles that he wanted to be, the movie wouldn't have worked. And he just he didn't care for it, because he had to play by the rules on this one. And oddly enough, it was his it was one of his successes. And you can watch it anywhere. It's public domain. I think they've let the copyright out on it. In fact, I think you can see it on YouTube anywhere. And it's a great film to just watch and listen to what I said, and see if you can see what I saw. It's got classic Orson Welles direction to it. There's some good scenes, camera turns and pans, and the way he moves that camera around. He had a flair that you can't deny, even in a film that he didn't like, and that he was sticking to the rules and giving the studio what they wanted. He had a flair for storytelling and camera direction that I think was ahead of his time. And of course, but you've seen that if you've seen Citizen Kane and any of his other famous films. But this one you need to give it a shot. I was expecting a decent old detective noir film. I got something stranger, and it isn't perfect. Some of it's very conventional, but it is studio safe Wells, but he's still directing. He's still moving that camera around. He's still positioning everything, and it's beautifully shot. I mean, just beautifully shot. And the central effects works. The evil Nazi war criminal is inside a small town and respectable, and that's just still very unsettling. But seeing it from the eyes of somebody living in 2026, how these people made this film in 1946 was really kind of historically, contextually eye-opening. And of course, Edward G. Robinson is great. Loretta Young is fantastic. I think she should have got the Academy Award for that. And of course, Orson Welles is Orson Welles, and he underplays this monster of a man. And yet somehow, he's just so disturbing in this film. It's just a very, very creepy film, especially knowing what we know now. And it looks like detective noir, but it is not. It is it's shot that way, but it's not. It's rotten. It's just creepy, and I highly recommend you watch it once, once in your life at least, and just appreciate the fact that contextually this was made at a time when people didn't really fully understand what the Nazis had done and the evil that they had inflicted upon history. And we Americans didn't have quite a grasp of it yet. And you can see it in the way that they approach this film. And it's just historically, in context, then and now, it's worth a second look. So I highly recommend it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Like and subscribe and all that happy stuff. And, feel free to, well, I've lost my train of thought. Anyway, I hope you watched the film. I hope you liked it as much as I did. I think I'm done talking. All right, you have a good day now. Bye-bye.